Glad to see you, though. You ready? Yeah.
Hold on 1 second, Mr. Chairman. It's starting up on YouTube.
Oh, well, then you got lucky.
All right, you're live.
Okay, call to order the special meeting for 4:30 on June the 23rd. At this time, Josh.
I'll just say a couple things.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Luann.
This meeting is in reference to the Community Development Block Grant funding for disaster CDBG DR funding. And we have recently entered into an agreement with GP Strategies to develop up to 15 applications for this funding. He'll go into the details of what kind of opportunities are available through this grant. But you know, today what we want to focus on is one, letting you see the projects that we have on the list based on different conversations we've had with you all over the last couple of years. Most of them we think would be applicable to the funding, but also to make sure we haven't missed something. If you feel like there's a major project or even not a major project you think we've missed, we want to be sure to capture that. And then today our main goal is to come away with at least 10 applications that they can start developing. And then we can come back at the next meeting and finalize the list of what they're going to apply for. So it's not all the pressure to have everything decided today, but we do want to move in that direction. So with that, I'll turn it over to Josh.
Thank you. So
You probably don't have to bend down.
think not?
I don't.
For the
Josh, you can pull it.
You can adjust the mic up.
I just
You gonna
Didn't
stand
think
on
you
the
would-
chair?
He's going to sit.
Oh,
I just didn't think you were going to be comfortable. Yeah, now pull it.
oh, that's perfect. All right, so in the back of your packet, there's some overview on the CDBG program. And this specific allocation, this was written before the action plan was published, so some things have become even more specific. At the very back, wait for you. Yep, yeah, the bottom page there.
Back.
I was looking at something else more interesting.
So we have the what is CDBG funding, selecting a project. So that gives some eligible activities of what types of projects they're looking for: infrastructure, public facilities, demolition, new construction of affordable housing is actually not. So as I said, this was written before the action plan. New construction of housing is not going to be allowed. Also, housing is going to be run through the state. So we will not be able to present projects specifically for housing. Those will be in coordination with the state and the DEO. Secondly, addressing the national objectives. So a lot of that, of our projects have to address that. So addressing an urgent need in the community, which is something that most of ours are going to do. Reducing slum or blight or benefit a low and moderate income area. So as we go forward on the projects, our Endeavor site is one of those high, low and moderate income areas, which is going to help us tremendously. Tied back to Hurricane Michael. Again, most of our projects in that area have been damaged, and a connection to a local plan. So the plan that we worked up and you adopted as a framework was most of these projects are going to be part of that. And they also set up priorities. So we're going to tie these projects back to those priorities in that plan. So the effort done last year is going to support our CDBG applications going forward. So with that being said, if you have any questions, we'll skip right to kind of our process. As we went through that planning process on the long-term recovery program, we had a lot of conversations with different departments, different outside agencies, that operate within the county. And then even we had a lot of conversations with cities. And that identified priorities, but it also identified some projects. And you also had projects on capital improvement lists and on your LMS, your local mitigation strategy, that may not have been great mitigation projects, but they would meet these criteria for CDBG-DR. So we took those projects and we applied, a preliminary analysis to evaluate priorities. And on this first page, you have that, how we did our rankings. And then getting to the good stuff is the project evaluation, that list of projects. This is 15, this first 15. And then on the second page, there's another 15. Actually, I'm sorry, another 10, I believe. So this is not comprehensive. We can add projects to this. The 15 applications that we've discussed, we can move things around. We can add new ones. And these sites we may consolidate in an application. I'll start at the top. Broadband, we've identified that as the number one. I think you've identified that as the number one priority in the county. I think from our discussions with experts in the field, broadband is going to meet almost every single criteria that CDBG is looking to support. It also supports almost all of our initiatives and our recovery support functions that have been identified in the plan. The estimated cost is just that, an estimated cost as we go through and flush out the actual project details. That budget may change, but we're going to start with priorities. We recommend you start with priorities and worry about the money and how it may shift available funds later, but focus on the top priorities. We have another priority as of the government administrative building. So I know we've had a lot of discussions about that project going forward, where, what, how it is. So this is the project. The details of it can be fleshed out during the application process of what it looks like. And we've had some preliminary discussions with the architect who previously designed some plans and gave us some great insight on what the cost and the scope of that project might look like. And we've had some discussions on beginning an engagement with DEO to discuss that project as well, and what we might need to do if you approve going forward with it. Next, endeavors. So the next several projects are all in Endeavor, which again is a very high LMI area, which is going to be a major target, and it's going to be a big benefit for us. So, making Endeavor a priority is going to be looked very favorable by DEO when they're selecting their applications and approving them. And again, we'll be in competition. I mean, the county is the county. There are other governments within the county that also be able to submit applications, but the Endeavor property, I think, will be a high priority. So we have the museum that's been on the list for a while. The event center and the meeting house, which is the church, the infrastructure to support the entire site, and utilities also for the site. So all those are separate projects. Those could be combined into a single application, which might facilitate a few more applications for us to be able to submit. The EOC Sheriff Dispatch Consolidation, we've been looking at that to try to find the right funding source for it. This would fit under public safety in the action plan. That would be adding an extension on the sheriff's office that exists out there now to include an EOC, which gives more room, more space, more field space to bring in different people in an event similar to Michael in the future. Also, that's going to potentially free up the EOC that exists now once that gets built, and that would be up to you to determine what future use of that is. And again, these are not necessarily in any particular order, although the endeavors are high on the list. The agricultural center improvements were identified during our planning process, as an area that they would like to improve, expand upon, because it's a revenue generator. And the term we heard was, if we build it, they will come. So as large a facility, as big as we could make it, the need for use would be there. And it was also damaged by the storm, which makes it it fits that criteria. Next, the Lake Seminole Master Plan improvements. This was a plan that has been developed, I think in 2012, so it's been out there for a while. It includes 3 sites, and I probably won't remember them all, but Neal's Landing, Paramore, and I think
Howell's Landing.
yeah. And then it also includes River Road improvements, or improvements to River Road. So that's all part of that plan, and it affects, I think, an economic development driver in that area. And then after that, a lot of these next projects came from the LMS, which again, some of them may be supported by a hazard mitigation project. They may be a little bit unique to be funded through hazard mitigation, but they are consolidated public safety with a shelter. So to include a sheltering component, and then you could use that as fire department / police, or however you kind of want to structure it, but it's a consolidated service center for public safety, and having those shelters in it, and there's 3 of them. So we could potentially create more, but northwest, southeast, and northeast. I guess the one thing that needs to be defined is what has taken place since those last plans. You know, where do we already have stations or shelters that are in plans or in design or completed? But at the time of this, and at the time of our discussions, those were the priority sites. Going further down, the correctional facility roof, or the jail roof, which has been damaged, and we are dealing with FEMA on that, but we want to put that on there in case there's an expansion beyond what FEMA will approve. Old Spanish Trail improvements and beautification, which holds the connection between Sneads and Grand Ridge, the straight line on that, creating a beautification and trails to connect those, a 5-mile stretch. And the same thing for Bayline Rails to Trails project, which has been between Graceville and Campbellton. So as you can see, those are in the red from a overall criteria evaluation project, but those potentially are designed to create traffic between those 2 locations, quality of life and economic development along those routes. And the Rails to Trails is kind of a national effort to create old rail lines that are no longer in use and turn those into bike trails or, places for exercise.
Quick question, Mr. Chairman. On that, Josh, on that Old Spanish Trail improvement, is that not paving?
Paving?
Yes.
So it's part of,
It's dirt road, the reason I'm saying that, I don't know anywhere you can put a trail on that road.
it would be kind of overall improvement. So there is, I think it was 1.6 million that was in one of the capital improvement plans.
Okay.
But in addition to that, and I don't know, maybe that isn't feasible, but.
Yeah, no, well, I'm just wondering, that was one of the projects we put for years. On the project for the remaining to be paved, because they were going to put the school system there. So I didn't know, I just want a clarification on that beautification. I mean, it's dirt road.
Yeah, I kind of touched base on that. So the roads are kind of a little unique, and we have to come up with some good explanations on why just paving a road, how does that improve
absolutely.
economic impact.
Sure.
So by saying, this one is going to have this improvement in trails and beautification, that's kind of some logic that we can apply to that to get to that end.
What kind of time frame is any of these? I mean, is it a WAG?
Application is not, they're not even open, so we're way ahead of the game. In discussions with DEO, they said September they were going to open applications. After Irma, they gave them a 30-day window, so quick turnaround. I don't know if COVID changes our timeline, but if we get an application in September, they say best case scenario be allowed in like March of next year. So March. So I mean, we know we've heard timelines before. So getting approvals done.
I said 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Commissioner Peacock.
Flipping through this, I see bridges are in there. We got wooden bridges. Is it possible we can replace these wooden bridges?
Yeah, I think.
I mean, they were impacted. I've got one I have to work on.
We got several
Constant.
tore up
So
from
infrastructure,
the hurricane.
yeah, infrastructure is there in there, and I have no problem with saying that's,
And drainage is in there also.
right. So where is the, where does that lie on a priority list is the only
Well, it
question.
depends
that's
on who
asked.
you ask.
Which
If
side of
you
the
ask
bridge
me,
you're
it's
on?
right behind Sweet Pond Road.
And broadband.
Well, broadband's number
Yeah.
one.
Well, just on a sidebar now, I understand the US Senate and all those considering broadband as this next package, the $1 trillion. It was,
Yes.
both sides have now pretty much said that that was their priority, and that's above the House and the Senate, is that's gonna be a big push. So I don't know will that affect that. Hopefully that might
And that's
shift that money, is
sort
what
of
I'm
a
saying.
benefit. We're gonna need to develop the application. So we've developed an application for a middle mile, and we have an idea of a last mile that may be changing right now, how we deliver that last mile to be cost effective. That process is going to, no matter who funds it, it's going to require that application. So if we go through the effort of developing this application for broadband, which we're going to need to do to understand from the county's perspective, how are we going to provide broadband? And then the next question is who's going to fund it? If we move forward on CDBG and something else comes up, we just hand it to them and move the next one up on the list.
How many wooden bridges do you have?
There actually
There's
is a
bunch. I
list
don't know.
in the LMS.
I think I got 17 in my district.
Wood?
I
Wow.
wouldn't- I wouldn't
I
doubt-
got two.
Oh, I've got a lot more than two.
The LMS plan, the previous one had an extensive list of wooden bridges. Those were the county's priorities, to replace wooden bridges with probably box culverts and so you could drive over them. So those are
Now, let's just
definitely
make sure they're on
available.
the list.
Okay.
I can see several. from
We
time.
can, what I would recommend then is do those by, because there are a lot by district, District 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5 bridges,
Okay.
conversions.
Okay.
I'm sure
And
Road
each
Bridge
one
is
of them
gonna
had
have
a
that.
dollar amount, which you may need to go back and look at.
And drainage is in there.
Yeah, drainage is, I think from a timeline standpoint, and I don't know that maybe having discussions with Scotty about which projects, there's so much, there's so many
We
different
just need to start at
ones.
the lake and start working backwards. That's the only way to do it.
Okay.
You
We
do it piecemeal and you'll clean out this and it'll be blocked down there and
So I think
they'll get overwhelmed.
not on this list, but one that we do want to add is a study and then a
No, I
regional
don't want to
study.
study. I want them to, I can tell you what to do. Just dig the ditches.
Well, I think the guidelines are already out there. It's 100-foot right of way on most of your old government ditches in
That's
the
correct.
50s. And so, I mean, there was already plans in motion to have this done before Hurricane Michael. Because the board here signed this back in March of '06 after 50 years of renewal. So, I mean,
Right.
there was a comprehensive plan or a layout of those ditches to be done. Now, some of them suggested different mechanisms on how much to leave or how much to take out, but you know, these things are impacting us every time it floods. Again, we got them out going out this coming week to do more of this, already should have been done years ago. What, August the 16th when we bought the $300,000 excavator for specific to do those ditches. So, I think
We
Scott
can-
could probably dig up some.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've written it down. I think
Yeah.
that's,
Drainage and bridges need to come up the list,
okay.
in my opinion.
There is a backside that we have a bunch of roads in here that are all on the list that may be funded by some other mechanism. They all said 22, 23, but if those actually get funded in that year, I don't know. And then the sheriff's office, the current sheriff's office, well, not the one over at Endeavor, but the old one, retrofitting that, fixing up the roof and everything we can with FEMA funding, and then taking the interior out to make it a commercial property. Has recently been discussed. And then the Shangri-La restoration was, again, in a list somewhere, but we thought we put it on here. So whether that is a priority again, I don't know, but the first page is sort of where we're at. And there are, if we have these two that are in red, and if we exchange those with bridges and drainage, but yeah, I think we'll have to focus drainage onto those things that we've been talking about, the flood ditches, for lack of a better term.
They definitely flood now with this, after the storm,
Flood
with all
control.
the trees in them.
Yeah, not flood creation. So, yeah, if those replace the Old Spanish Trail and the Bay Line rails to trails.
Maybe we should rename it Control Flooding.
Right.
How you
Just
start?
reverse those.
I don't like where Sweet Pond Road's on this list.
So that, again, we need to do a little bit more work on all of these roads to
I
understand
agree.
that they are, how do they impact economic? Where do they run through? Are they running through LMI? Are they connecting an economic center or a housing unit? There's a lot more work on these roads to justify improvements on them than these other ones.
Yeah.
Not that it can't be done.
Sweet Pond Road is one you're trying to do with your 4177, right?
Yes.
This is not a list that they're trying to get money
I
for,
know,
not right?
They are.
Because Piano Road is on the DOT,
This
Scrap,
was-
Scott, whatever.
Yes.
That's
To do,
exactly
so it's
right. So some of these
Kinesville.
roads won't even apply.
But the
Yeah.
question is, are they scheduled, and when are they scheduled? And is it, if you do Piano Road, let's say with CDBG funding, does that free up for something else?
No, because that'd be already selected by the DOT.
you would have to
and-
do it with Scott money.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to take one off of that,
Okay,
I think.
you can't
You could take
replace
it off of this list.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, this list, yeah.
so this
That's
was
what I'm
answered.
saying.
That's what
This is
I'm
not-
saying.
But when you said the order,
I know.
yeah, it's like, this is just a, well, I wasn't sure if you thought that was kind of the order. Because
No.
Piano Road is a,
Yeah, this is
DOT.
the order the list was on the capital improvement
I'm
list.
thinking Piano Road is next year.
I
Funded?
haven't seen that. I actually, no, I looked actually and I didn't, Mill Pond Road was awarded for
Mill,
in 21.
No,
I looked
should be.
up Scott awards for 2021, and it was, I think, Mill something. But I'll go back there and show
We
you
got a
that.
mill, me and Eric's got a Mill Road, but it's not on it.
I looked it up.
mine has been
Monday.
paid.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that-
this
they had
list is-
several in
who
Jackson
knows?
County. That was the only one the only road I saw. That
Mill
was approved.
Road?
No, don't get,
Well, I got Mill Avenue and a Mill Road with you.
I'll look it up again, or y'all can look it up, but there was
Let me get
one
some
award.
of that.
And I wanted to make sure that none of these were
Yeah.
selected. But I also wanted to put them on the list because of exactly that. In your list, they had a year, and some of them had a SCOP or some other program that they anticipated funding. These did not have anything. Maybe they were intended to, but they didn't have a funding source. They had an intended year and a dollar amount, but not a funding source.
Hoosier's,
That's-
being
I thought it was
designed.
separate.
It is, yeah, we have, yeah.
that's the, like the Panama City cutoff and the Jacob Highway, right? That's a mitigation,
Hoosier?
Hoosier?
Yeah,
Yeah.
mitigation. Yeah, our design was funded through RIF, and the construction has a mitigation project. And then, yeah. So these are, I guess, to be looked at, to be determined, but there's also FEMA funding for certain projects like Blue Springs. And again, the 4177 potential to fund some of these like Sweet Pond Road. But that's 3.8. I don't think that's the amount that you had requested. So this may be,
If I get 3.8, I can do the entire road.
okay, 3.8 is the entire road. What is in the pipeline is less than that. It's a section.
Yeah. but
So
that's-
maybe this gets the other section. That's a potential.
How long is that road? 3.5 miles?
I'd have 4.
Be
There is,
yeah. You done it all.
I'll have to throw some, I'll have to haul some rock, do that myself.
and in the,
Huh?
The wagon. Oh,
in the back, you know, that the first page that we looked at, some of the criteria that makes it a more favorable application is cost shared, which means not necessarily the cost share that we're paying, but if we say FEMA's paying Sweet Pond, we've got FEMA's contributing this much and we need you to contribute that much. That's part of the factors. And there is no cost share as well, so that's a big benefit. This also, our hazard mitigation cost share, if you recall that was 25%. CDBG will be funding that, but not through the bucket that comes to us. It'll be actually at the state level who's picking that tab up and applying it to all of our hazard mitigation. So it won't be coming out of the allocation for Jackson County, separate allocation, which is great. It gives us more to work with.
Good.
So if there is I don't know if we identify a top 10 list or, you know, where do you want us to start?
You want to pick 10 out of these 15?
Or 15 if we want to just say, let's convert bridges and
Drainage
and
bridges.
drainage to replace Old Spanish Trail and Bayline
Absolutely.
as
Where did them two projects come
from our discussions with cities. So the city may be applying for that, and we can.
When we went around and met with cities, a while back, however, it was at the Graceville, Cottondale, it was at the Cottondale meeting where the Bayline Rails to Trails project came up with Cottondale, Graceville, Campbellton, and Jacob, I think, and Alfred. Anyway, that was one that came up, so we put it on the list. I think that one was where that one came, if there was a funding source identified.
Right.
Tying all them cities?
No, that was just who all was at the meeting.
Oh,
But where does this go?
So the applications?
No, the trail. The
Oh,
trail.
it runs from Graceville, apparently from their
Campbellton.
discussion to Campbellton. So that's that kind of same concept of you're connecting cities, not through roads, but through bike trails or some alternative form of, right.
Was it
Solar
sort of
power.
What are you gonna do about the
Solar
nap?
Mr. Obar was the one who brought that
Naps.
particular one
Naps.
up.
yeah, you hadn't took care of them yet. There's a
I
lot of
haven't
them in your
tried.
district. Just saying.
If I can get
And then
representative on
and
TDC
the jail
to do
roof
his
is just a
job.
backup for the source we're already trying.
Yeah, so I think if it goes above and beyond the scope, what FEMA will say is eligible, so there is a little bit of, well, that was a pre-existing thing, and the storm only caused this, that sort of argument.
Where are we at on the pipeline on that one?
We're trying to get additional thermal imaging to justify that, which is, you know, at this point, sort of a bizarre request form.
They do a thermal heat sample variation of the room temperature.
Yeah.
Water, cold water or something. They can
Right.
fly a little drone over.
Okay.
Correct.
I missed what you were saying.
So, this is definitely a backup for another alternative.
So in your experience,
funding
then,
source.
what needs to be looked at? I mean, in your experience, we can toss stuff around, but I mean, when you put yellow, red, and green on here, I mean, is that basically telling us the priorities are the markers there based upon whose evaluation? You know, you got one, several at 23, 21, it's just subsequently down.
There was a criteria to kind of just give us an idea of likelihood of the application success. So,
Usually.
you know, what's the most likely to succeed? What's the least likely to
So
succeed?
basically, 5 of these 15 projects is pretty much guaranteed by the green light. I mean, I said, well, within margins, I'm sure.
Those are going to be ones that are, and those are a lot in Endeavor and the broadband, which is everyone's favorite right now.
Yeah.
And then there's some that could adjust based on specific findings during the application process, probably up.
So the broadband is gonna be definitely in the criteria, I mean.
Yeah,
within-
as a piece of infrastructure,
No, I ain't talking about this, I'm talking about with FEMA to okay that.
it's HUD, yeah,
Or
CDBG,
HUD.
yeah. So
Sorry.
DEO, that's that economic development that, where EDA demanded like economic impact only. And that's the only thing they looked at as the criteria. HUD will factor in all sorts of things like public safety and education and healthcare, all those criteria that really make broadband so important.
Why is the county admin building yellow?
Our
The government administrative building.
Yeah, these things may,
Can you
I
build?
think these numbers might be a little bit wrong, but the funding probability, there is the discussion with DEO that we want to have that conversation with to identify the government complex as a catalyst for Endeavor. So to get their buy-in, that's the factor that's bringing that down to yellow instead of green for
Okay.
CDBG funding.
Because that's one of the
Apparently they
main
don't-
talks.
Apparently, they don't love funding government buildings through this, but they have done it.
Unless it's like a fire station or something.
Well, I mean, that was one of the first things that they talked about when they come, is consolidating, making bigger, better,
Get
more
into buildings
sound.
like this.
Yeah.
Right.
Make something more secure.
During the action plan, we had a time for public comment and we submitted our comments. There is some language in there that talks about, this building was damaged, every building that we're going to put in there had some level of damage. So it's mitigation. We've worked our arguments in. We just need to go in and sit with DEO, which is on the agenda, is to have that conversation with the people that we've already talked to. And explain to them not only all those factors we identified, but this at the Endeavor site in that area is going to be a catalyst for economic development and for housing and everything else that we're talking about. And that drives a major impact. And it's also in this LMI location. So
So
there's still some talking to that we have to do.
based upon the estimate for this building, what do we get out there, a tent for $12 million?
No, so but this 12 million comes from the discussion with the architect who
So we're gonna have to throw some of our money.
had it lower. No, I mean, he added it like 8, so we escalated.
He added an 8 million?
Yeah, but he said that was an old design.
That was
so-
an old design.
I
before
thought the
we
original
ever-
design from 2012 was almost 20 million. They backed it up about 20,000 square foot and got it more. Because our fire
That's-
department just cost us 2.5 million and the
Yeah.
land was free, just not at 6,000.
I mean, this is from the architect who said, and that's what I thought that, and that's what I had heard. But talking to the architect, he said,
Commissioner Spires?
Yes, what kind of things are included under the category of Endeavor infrastructure?
roads. It's
Roads.
almost entirely roads, and the utilities is water. So,
Okay.
and so this infrastructure right now, this 1.4 is only the main road coming up, and I think it'd be called Governor Scott Lane or whatever that runs by the
The
museum.
two main ones coming in.
Correct. And there is a plan for all the other ones, but since we don't really know what the design's gonna look like, those 2 roads we do know are gonna exist. But the roads in the back and the roads on the side with some others, a developer may want to do something else, or we may have other plans.
Chairman.
One other question.
No.
Go ahead.
Okay, agriculture center improvements.
Yeah, that is, at least at this point, based on our discussions with that organization, is they were looking to create a separate arena. So they have one major arena that needs to be repaired. They want to establish another covered arena. They have one out there that's not covered, and they believe that with another covered arena, they can hold 2 shows, barrel racing, and then whatever at the other one. And that would create a much larger draw because they can hold 2 things simultaneously.
Okay,
So the one on Highway 90, yeah.
Okay, that's when you're referencing, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So in addition to that, that's stadium, there would also be improvements to parking and other things that are going to be necessary.
Yeah, no, I just, on the government administrative building, I'm like Clint, it's just like, it's in the yellow. I mean, I think that probably, to me, besides obviously broadband, priority one, but this needs to be like on a Learjet. It's simply because we got monies coming in
Right.
possibly on buildings like this one
Right.
that is totally inefficient and got decay, damaged and 100-year-old building. We're going to slowly have those monies possibly coming in that can maybe support more of the building aspect out there at that endeavor. So
Yeah.
if we had to start making decisions where to do $500,000 repair on a small wall back here, or dump $500,000 into where we needed to go,
Right.
I think that needs to be a priority because we got so many aging buildings that's got to be more efficient and
Right.
more ergonomically, geographically located.
And I know one of our main priorities, our top priorities in the plan is to consolidate facilities and modernize, and that is what everyone says. And then when it rubber meets the road, oh, well, not for that or something. So we have to make that argument. But as a priority, getting a decision with DEO will let us know how to move forward. So,
Does it help?
and that doesn't, we don't have to submit an application before
Right.
that. We can have this conversation and go get buy-in from that organization to say, okay, we like this.
Does it help categorically that we already had the property? I mean, the properties that, does that?
Yeah, I think that's cost
It's
share.
got skin in
So
the game
it goes
already. I
back
mean,
to
you got
that. It goes back to that, what's your cost share?
Sure.
And we can create a value to that and say, we are contributing this as part of our cost share to the overall project. And you create a project that, if I was going out and buying this piece of property, it would cost X.
Right.
So that's my contributing factor. And I think we do that with everything in Endeavor to make it even higher up, although I think it's already, going to be a prep project.
Yes.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the Consolidated Regional Public Safety Complex?
Yeah. This has been on this, we saw several projects in the LMS, the mitigation strategy, that had new fire station, new shelters, all of this. So consolidating regionally some of those projects to create a fire station, public safety, a shelter, something like that could be kind of multifunctional, and a large shelter that could also be a community center when not used as a shelter, and put that regionally where we need, where it's most needed. And I have right here, we have northwest, southeast, and northeast. So either adding another one or separating those, maybe when we don't need one in one location, but that's the goal.
We have one shelter in Jackson County,
High school.
Mariana High School.
And just the east
That's it.
wing, and that's it. They don't even count the whole
That's right.
Yeah.
And the kitchen does not have gas.
Hey, they cooked some fine hamburger the night before, but
Whatever they do, this is a little bit off topic.
We could put a consolidated shelter
Gateway
in
School.
Malone.
Is it-
Yeah, but that's the
No.
northeast.
they didn't know.
Nope.
Do what?
Neither is the Graceful, the new Graceful.
The opportunity to
It's not
put
either.
the shelter in place there with the funding to build a K through 8, they didn't approve that,
Well, we tried to,
get that lobby. And there was an 8 or 10% cost analysis increase to it to do it during the building construction, and they didn't approve it.
Over at Grand Ridge?
No, the K through 8.
In Graceville.
In Mariana, and
Mariana.
Graceville.
and Grand Ridge-
They didn't really go after it for the K through 8, did they?
Yeah, we had to sign off on for a waiver for it.
remember?
Yeah, but we signed the waiver so they didn't have to go.
Right, but
We didn't sign the one in Grand Ridge. We
Well, they had
did
started,
the
they just
agreement.
bought the property on that one. They
Yeah.
hadn't done the analysis on that.
But at
They
this
should.
point, we
That's
only have
crazy.
one shelter.
It is.
What we've got to do is help them
Yeah,
get
not
the
have a shelter.
funding
We'll have
to
to
harden
look
that
it up.
one
Right.
in Grand Ridge.
And I mean, if that's, we can look into that if we already have a
Well, they already have a
facility built.
plan for if I understand the basic layout plan of it, I'm sure it's not the final draft, but if that's something we can put in here, or is that
That
something,
would
does the
save
school-
us. But you
well, does
got-
the school board do that? Let me just say that, because we cross the boundary, do they have their own opportunity to fund?
And they do,
I don't want-
exactly.
okay.
And they do have a list of projects
are
that
they?
they've already identified as well that we'll be competing with them
But-
against, so. So here's,
We are supposed to go to the legislature and find
Right.
the 5.8 million or whatever
That- Right, that was the one on Mariana. and
For-
we didn't.
Grand Ridge.
I ain't heard of that. We've done that.
Mariana.
Yeah, it was Grand Ridge.
Oh, was it
Grand
Grand
Ridge is
Ridge?
the one we did.
Okay.
so here's the advantage that I think the
I'm
county is
old,
going to
but I
have
remember things.
as well against other places is that we do have a plan, an adopted plan, long-term recovery plan that follows the recovery sports functions of the National Disaster Recovery Plan framework, sorry. And when we say this project over here is in the county's plan, when we compete against something in the same spot that is not on the plan, maybe we're gonna have an advantage, so that's helpful. But it also allows us to go to places like the school district and say, we have this in our plan and you have that. You know, we can either adopt that as a plan, we can remove this because we don't need two shelters in the same, right down the road from one another. Let's kind of bring them to the table because we have the plan and we have the framework and go, let's put your project in our plan.
Can we
And then you can
coordinate with the school board about the school in Grand Ridge?
Yeah, and they've actually sent me some of their projects, so.
So we make sure that we are including that.
And
So
we're
we
not-
don't have to go
And we can,
begging for $5.8 million.
right, and we can adopt it in a part of the framework as a project that meets the priority, and we create a joint application.
Does new tax credit, can we tandem these with new tax credit? Can that be blended together, the new tax credit market?
I have no idea.
The reason I'm saying that, I mean, they was talking about some of the things over in Sneeze when they met with them, aside from me, and just some of the things you could add in that red area by the federal government, and I wonder if their funding for that could be incorporated, but we'll check.
And yeah, I mean, I think if we identify where we want to go for, we start building these things, and there's a shifting environment with CARES Act funding and with new funding coming, we don't know what's going to happen, but we do know what our needs are and how those needs get funded. They're all going to require scoping out a project and justifying it for application. So
What we need to do is take this list and study it and come back to you with a list of 10, or you want us to come up 15?
I mean, yeah, our
I'm
approach
gonna
is
do
to,
18.
yeah, well, we
There's a
can.
couple of them.
We're going to start with 15.
Ideally, what we would like is y'all to adopt 5 to 10 today to get them busy developing applications.
The ones we know about, the ones you're confident, this is the ones we
I
want.
mean, y'all could just go down and decide, we're sure about broadband, we're sure about the administration building, we're sure, you know, whatever you're sure about, and we get them started, and then we can come back in a couple weeks with the remainder after you've had time to look at it and think on it.
I would,
Wouldn't financially, I mean, I see some of the ones that cost the most money are not in the green, so I'm assuming that just means how much they cost and not their priority, but you don't want to shift around one that, you know, is, 1.2 million that's in the green, and we got one down here for 3 million. Can that be substituted, or is that just not the percentage of chances of them funding that may be low to moderate?
Yeah, that's the color code is just kind of where we think our,
So we can't just criteria by financial cost.
No,
You want to get the most bang for your buck if we're
Well,
choosing.
and that Endeavor area is going to be probably our best chance of, just because it falls in the low to moderate income area.
well, you could do the utilities infrastructure, cultural complex, I'm kind of like Dr. Squires now. What are we talking about?
which
You're talking about
the,
the church there.
yeah,
The church,
and the event center, the
gymnasium?
Yeah, so.
No, because we're trying to get money out of TDC for that.
Okay. But
Yes,
But
but
that would, whatever we want, we can expand that to an outdoor amphitheater that connects the gymnasium with the meeting room.
Who's gonna take care of the gnats?
There's obviously a problem with the gnats. That has been identified.
We take that money and
And on
get them
trails.
to maybe sterilize the gnats.
Well, I think
I
getting
would-
rid of the pool might do it.
Yeah. I would, just me looking at it, I'd say the top 6.
I don't mind them working.
1,
on
2,
it.
3, 4, 5, 6. Because the utilities is gonna be, got to have.
And obviously,
we
these
gotta
may be turned into a single application, but identifying these projects we can go forward on is good enough.
Do the top 6.
and then we can go back in a couple weeks and talk through the next priorities, or maybe we'll be ready.
Give us
to
time
finish.
to fine tune our, think about it.
But I think
And
the
then-
top
and if-
6,
Top 6.
what do y'all think?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
top 6?
top six. for
You're
sure.
gonna have to have the utilities and infrastructure,
Yes.
you know, and then,
So make that
we got
property.
plans on, some of this might get changed,
Oh, yeah.
Well, I
like
think,
possibly, who knows, the museum possibly could be funded another way, but we don't know.
and I think, right, so we're in this situation where like, well, do I want to go for this because something else might happen?
We
At
gotta
some point,
go
we
out.
just got to go forward
Yeah.
with this, you know, the bird in the hand and go get what's there and figure out the next round of funding.
How
what
far
we do with that.
into the process can we go
It's-
before we change as we go along?
Yeah,
We're
I-
going along and say, oh, we decide, we really don't want to do this, we want to do this.
I think we
phase.
have a.
When you
we
do
have a
the
period of
application,
time.
are we committed?
Are you gonna turn it down?
Okay.
And so we have like July and August and
We'll
possibly
start
some of
working, I would say,
September.
let's start working on the 6th, and we will get back
Yes.
to you.
Yes, and we do have a short window to create these mini applications to make them, you know, good and have a conversations with DEO. The more lead time we have, the better. And if we can adjust something at the end after we know we've got what we want, and you know, what else can we add? That's where I think we need to be. Adding stuff to what we already have to changing things out.
Now, just say we was to get all 6 of these,
Yeah.
and, what's the amount of money? 3, 4, 5, I don't know, just come up with a number, $40 million.
Yeah.
Okay, and it only takes 30 million to do this. Can we use that money, or does that have to go back to FEMA?
No,
Because they
it's-
were talking
it's
about that when
HUD.
they first come.
Yeah, it's HUD, so it's,
Oh, I
Different-
keep
yeah.
saying FEMA, I'm sorry.
yeah, it's gonna be actual cost. So it's not a situation where you get to use the excess of it.
Okay.
They will approve a scope of work, and you will have to, there's some very strict rules about administration and project management. You gotta keep these things aligned. They're way more advanced on doing quarterly reports and getting your finances than FEMA is. FEMA kind of comes in at the end.
Is that
So-
something that kind of FEMA this time
Yeah.
left out when they first come and talked to us?
Yeah.
Because they were talking about, we wasn't talking to HUD at that time, we were talking to FEMA. Oh, you can do this and build this, and once we give you the money, you can do it, you know, whatever you want to, not whatever you want to do.
Right.
But, you know,
Yeah,
They
so,
promise you the moon and deliver nothing.
but it's all through HUD.
And yes, it's
CB.
through HUD, and HUD is more involved from a compliance standpoint throughout the process than FEMA is, who comes in at the end and basically gives the money to the state, and then the state deals with it. There's quarterly reporting criteria that is more involved. But anyways, that's kind of to the point that to answer your question, it's just whatever the project costs. So, but that project scope can be expanded to meet the dollar amount, you know. You can't maybe take it to somewhere else, but you could improve something that you didn't think of originally at that location.
I just wanted to mention that an addition on the next agenda is going to be discussing the admin building renovations and getting direction on that, since it got mentioned.
This way.
Since it got mentioned.
So yeah, I think that would be a great start. Start doing that, and then we can go into greater detail on each of these projects and provide you kind of a markup on probability and justification that we would go forward with, and then
Some of these I'm pretty sure we definitely gonna want to do, but y'all
Yeah.
said 5, so we kind of went 6 there and
Well, they're not going to develop 15 applications in the next
at
2
one
weeks.
time.
right.
We can get back with it.
Right. I just didn't want us to let the summer get away from us without having them working on developing them.
That'll be a good
And
start.
when you look at the Northwest, Southeast, those are, even if those are separate applications, it's going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
And you just change the name
Right.
and the locations. And probably some demographics on the region. But yeah, and I think this can be a process over the next month and through July of refining the remaining projects, priorities, and adding to some that they may not be on here, and maybe moving some off, because we do know we have a lot and it's going to be funded through a different funding source.
I certainly want to see drainage and, replacing those wooden bridges.
Okay.
Do you have a list of the wooden bridges?
I have what is on the LMS, so I guess I can pull that list, and then it said replace every single, a whole lot of wooden bridges. And I can cross-reference that with Scotty and GS, or whatever, GIS, to make sure that's the full list of wood bridges. Yeah, and I won't talk about future funding, because who knows what's going to happen in the future, but.
Okay. Anybody have any more questions or comments?
You better tell Commissioner Spires about us taking those projects out of this district.
Which one?
You just say fun.
Huh?
Just say fun,
All of a
right?
sudden,
Okay.
perked up.
Okay.
Like you, you have going the one that's not here, not the one that's present.
Yeah.
I got its attention.
Okay. We
I
don't,
do think that as we develop the broadband project, there will be some conversations we're going to have it and get approvals on what that looks like for the county. I mean, we know we have middle mile. We'd like to present the full solution, total solution, and that will come back to you and say, how do we, here's the options, and this is the price for those
Okay.
different options.
Sounds good.
I think we got another group coming in to talk to us, right?
Yeah.
The Walton County group.
Oh, I haven't got a contact, but yes. Yeah, send it to me. I reached
Okay.
out for it.
Okay.
okay. Anything else? Okay, we will adjourn to till our 6 o'clock meeting.